Well, good Monday morning to you. Welcome to our Monday morning live edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. I'm your host, Jim Tabor, along with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox from Doctor's Nutrition on Callan-Array Road at Gulfport, just south of Pass Road. We do this every Monday morning. It is a live call-in show. So we invite you to call in and ask questions regarding our topic of this morning. Or if you have any other questions regarding health you want to pass along to us, please call us 896-0713 or 800-349-0713. Today we're talking about problem that a lot of people deal with, and I don't know, it's not a real, I mean, it's pretty painful. Can be pretty painful at times.
Can be
very painful.
Crohn's and colitis.
Yeah,
Right.
Crohn's is actually pretty rare. I mean,
Right.
true Crohn's is not real common, but colitis is very common. So you do have where, many people have colitis, and that just means inflammation in the
I
colon.
was just saying, what's the difference between the two?
Well, Crohn's is an autoimmune disease, so it's your own body attacking itself. And Crohn's can happen anywhere from the mouth all the way out. So it can be anywhere in the digestive tract. Colitis is actually the large intestines. So it is a little bit different in the areas, and it can, they are different because one being autoimmune, they both are inflammatory though. That's
Right.
how they're the same, is they both cause a lot of the same symptoms.
Yeah.
Well, what causes them?
Well,
Okay, well, let's say what causes Crohn's? What's an early
Crohn's
sign?
is autoimmune. which
It's autoimmune, yeah, so something has to go wrong with the immune system, but all this goes back typically to the diet on the patient. I mean, seriously, when you go back to them, you talk to the patients, and I've talked to a bazillion of them over the years, and it always goes back to their diet. They always, if they'll change their diet, especially with the gastritis, colitis, and so on, typically they can see some pretty good results and changes. Now, if they don't, because and especially nowadays, we're seeing way more of it now than, say, 30 years ago. We just didn't see that much. We saw it, but it wasn't that much of it, the gastritis, colitis, et cetera, and especially the autoimmune type stuff. But the more we know about the probiotics, the things that are good or beneficial bacteria in the gut, what keeps the gut healthy and happy, and what we know about the food supply today that keeps it pretty angry and upset, and that's typically what you wind up with the colitis and or gastritis and so on. So it goes back to a lot to the diet.
Is there any kind of really early signs that
there's a lot of symptoms
Yeah.
of both, and they're very similar. That's why, with people don't know a lot of times which one it is. And it really, the only way you know for sure is to actually have a scope done, and they can actually take a little biopsy, and they usually do that to see for sure what exactly is going on.
Right.
But there's no doubt both have inflammation. But you can actually have the bloating. You can have, a lot of people have real bad fatigue. They start getting a lot of nutritional deficiencies. That's one of the big things with both, is if the gut's inflamed, and a lot of times you have a lot of diarrhea, then you get rid of all your nutrients, and you're not absorbing your nutrients correctly. So then you'll start seeing a lot of deficiencies, especially magnesium, iron, B12, folate, some of the zinc, some of the calcium has even been shown to be deficient in those problems. So you can get a lot of nutritional deficiencies. They both have that. You can get bloody stools. You can have that. So there's just a lot of discomfort in either one.
And a lot of the when you start talking to people that have the colitis and so on, they have those symptoms that she just mentioned, which is a myriad of them. I mean, there's a lot of different symptoms, pain being one of the biggest things, and especially after eating certain things and so on, certain foods, et cetera. But what you find with a lot of them is they put them on medications, and one of the first medications they do stops the digestion. It's some of your acid reducers. Well, then they get more nutrient deficient over the time. And what we see is over time, patients that have been treated for colitis, et cetera, and give them, say, 6 months, give them a year being treated. Next thing you know, they've got all kind of problems because the nutrient deficiencies, the vitamin D's low, everything's low. I mean, because they're just, like I say, they can't get the basic nutrients needed for the body to function, because our body knows how to function if we just give it the right stuff.
And both can cause weight loss as well, because if they're not digesting properly and not absorbing their nutrients, not absorbing their food, and just having chronic diarrhea, and then weight loss can go along with it too. But I've seen a lot over the years, the people were way overweight. So you can't just say only thin people have colitis and Crohn's, because I don't see that. When you look up what they'll say about it, they'll say it's a lot of weight loss, but I don't see that in everybody.
Now, we've actually seen a lot of patients that unfortunately, because they'll find some comfort food that's basically
Right.
sugar
And carbs.
Okay, carbs, and so that's what they eat, the majority of it. And when they do, yep, they gain weight. And they say, well, I'm gaining weight. I haven't lost any weight, so But that just because you're gaining weight, gaining fat, doesn't mean that you're healthy. That's
Right.
the problem, and that's when you start getting into. We look at that patient. And we're going to look at a lot of their nutrients, like their B12, or folate, look at their vitamin D, look at things like the minerals, especially calcium, magnesium, et cetera. Look at those minerals because those are kind of hard to absorb. And when you get inflammation in that GI tract, anywhere from the stomach on down, or actually from the mouth on down, or the esophagus, anywhere in that GI tract, you can start having issues as far as malabsorption. You just don't absorb any nutrients, you're going to have problems.
So, are there certain foods that we should avoid? I mean, you mentioned.
Well, there's no
I know
doubt.
sugars, carbs.
I think, yep.
Sugar
I think
especially.
everybody's kind of agreed in all across, no matter who it is, saying for diet, get off packaged processed food.
Yeah.
Which is what we say every time.
Pretty much every
So
week.
Every week.
actually, now one of the things that's different is people that actually truly have, especially Crohn's, but I say both, need to get off of dairy and need to get off of gluten. Those are very inflammatory problems, and people tend to have, those are high allergens for the digestive tract. So I would say get off of those foods, and they've even shown like the rice and other really high carbs in potatoes are very inflammatory, especially potatoes. Believe it or not, people think that's really easy on the digestive tract, but potatoes are a nightshade, which actually is very inflammatory.
Yeah.
So you don't, that's what people go to, and that's probably what they shouldn't go to.
Right.
You also, believe it or not, have to be careful with fiber. Normally we say high fiber, high fiber, high fiber, and yes, you want to get adequate fiber, but some people don't do well with fiber when they have these conditions.
And if you do fiber, you want to do the soluble fiber, not the insolubles. And we get a lot of people that have this kind of condition, they come in looking for psyllium husk. Whoa, 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 wrong one. That's a very insoluble fiber, and it's extremely rough on the gut. So you don't want that.
Yeah.
You want the soluble fibers.
Right, and so like I said, so there is no doubt food plays a huge role in, if you think about it, what affects the colon and everything more than anything is what you eat.
What goes in has to come out.
What goes in,
What goes
exactly.
in, yeah.
At some point or
And
the
it
other.
is known that alcohol does aggravate it as well, and so we'll talk about that when we come back.
Okay. It's 8 minutes after 9 o'clock, 896-0713 or 800-349-0713. Talking about Crohn's disease and colitis this morning, or anything else you might want to ask a question about. Feel free to pick up the phone and give us a call. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back. And welcome back. It's 10 minutes after 9 o'clock, and we're talking about Crohn's disease and colitis on this morning's edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. What happens if it goes untreated?
People can get severely sick.
You can.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, you can be extraordinarily sick. I've actually seen a couple of patients over the years, started out with colitis, not treated very well. Patient wasn't educated about their diet, what to do or anything. Years go by, and they actually had to have what they call a resected colon, actually took part of the colon out. Not a good place to be.
Yeah,
so,
they'll start taking out parts of the colon when they'll actually necrose and die.
Right.
So the colon will get to where, I mean, at that point you don't have a choice because you have a section that is not active at all. And so there's a lot of problems, and severe anemia I've also seen be a problem with those as well, especially Crohn's. But both of them can make anemias to where people can't build blood anymore because they don't have the nutrients they need to build blood, and then they're getting blood transfusions and things like that. So that's not a good thing to do either. So, and then like you said, the pain that goes along with it, nobody likes.
Yeah.
So it can be very painful, and people can have a lot. It affects their life in every way.
Yeah, we had a prime example. It's been years and years and years ago now. Probably 15 years ago or better, or maybe even more than that. But anyhow, had an elderly lady. She was like 80 plus. Okay, so a little older. Came in and she said, "What can you do for me?" I said, "What kind of problems do you have?" I've had 20 something. I think it was 27 blood transfusions. I said, "For what?" She said, "Well, they don't know." I said, this is, something, okay. We dug into it. Sure enough, that was her chief complaint. That was why she started going to the doctor years before that, was colitis, that kind of issue. and she couldn't make blood, literally couldn't, because she didn't have enough iron or anything else to make blood. So she'd get so anemic, and eventually they'd just say, well, okay, we'll give you a unit of blood, and you'll be fine. She was fine for a while, but then, again, it went on about its way. So over these several years, she had like 20-something, I think it was 28 total, she told me, I believe it was. It was crazy. We put her on some things, got her changed her diet a little bit, got her to doing some things, probiotics, that kind of thing, along with some other things to heal that gut, and voila, no more blood transfusion.
Now, we've had a few of those over the years, actually.
Yeah.
And they were constant blood transfusions, and it was because of bleeding also. The nutrients are one thing, but you actually get bleeding with the problem. And so they were losing blood through the colon.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, especially in older age people, they don't want to do the surgeries.
Right.
And we've had them. I've had somebody in the 90s that lived after she started doing everything and stopped the bleeding into her hundreds. So you can do something about it, even at an older age. And our GI essentials, and I think a lot of times it is calcium. We go by the blood work and see what that person needs. But the GI essentials is always part of it because it heals the lining of the gut and intestines and definitely helps with inflammation.
If you're celiac, are you more susceptible to get Crohn's or colitis?
Yeah.
Celiac, you are definitely colitis because it's inflammation.
Right.
And there's no doubt celiac patients have a lot of inflammation.
Right.
And they have a severe nutrient deficiency because the little villi in the intestines get flat and it can't grab any of the nutrients anymore. So they have the inflammation and the flat villi, and then that causes a whole nother problem. So celiac is a severe gluten problem. You can still be gluten sensitive and cause problems without being celiac. So that's why we actually, if somebody has a really bad problem in the colon, we do recommend gluten-free, because just to make sure you take that out. Now, when it comes down to it, another thing that really helps is food allergy testing. People say, well, I think I can eat this and it doesn't bother me, but I can't eat, but it's hard to figure out what all I can eat. Well, the best thing to do there is a food allergy test. It is not the cheapest test, but it is a very good test to actually see.
It's a very telling test.
It is a very telling test
It really is.
on what you should do. Also helps indigestion really. We have so many people with the severe reflux that nothing helps. They do the food allergy test and then it's better. Because your body does have reactions and sensitivities to food that it doesn't like.
Yeah, your brain, your taste buds might say, "Oh, this is really good stuff," but
well,
your body's going, "No."
Right. One of the things that people don't realize is food has a lot of nutrients. Food also has a lot of anti-nutrients.
It does.
And the reason being, think about it. Nature said, okay, if we're going to grow this perfectly thing, like for instance, a tomato, but we don't want the bugs to eat it, so we're going to put some stuff in there. Lectins are real big in tomatoes, by the way, and that's one of the anti-nutrients. And so they put a lot of these lectins in that tomato. Well, it keeps the animal eats it and says, "Ooh, gosh, I don't want that again." So they go about their way. But us humans, we like the taste, so we eat more of it. And if we eat too much of it, and if you've got that inflammation to begin with, now you're just adding fuel to the fire, and it just creates a real problem for you. It really does.
Wow. Well, what do you have? One other thing I was going to ask. Blood work.
Yeah.
Can blood work, can you get numbers or something off of blood work?
Blood work does not diagnose Crohn's or colitis.
No.
Except, now, what I say is we can look for nutrients deficiencies in blood work, and we can also look for infection. Infection can actually cause a colitis as well. So you can actually see, does it look like you have a bacterial infection, things like that. You can look for that. There is something called calprotectin, which is actually a blood test that looks for inflammation. Now, it is expensive.
Yeah.
But we also have a stool test. We have a very comprehensive stool test that is really good for things like if somebody has colitis or Crohn's or cannot control it, it actually also looks for inflammation markers. It does the calprotectin, but it checks for fungus, it checks for viruses, it checks for bacteria, it checks for all of it. So it checks for causes and parasites, and then and it also looks, do you have enough good bacteria? It looks at the diversity of the bacteria. Crohn's and colitis people are known for not having very good diversity. They do know that when they do stool samples from this group, is that they don't have the diversity in the probiotics that they should.
Right.
So that is, a stool test is really good. It's just not the cheapest. I think it's like $550 for the stool test. It's like $450 for the food allergy test. So there's some good testing. It's just not cheap. And that calprotectin, if we do it in a lab test, it's like $190. I just looked it up for somebody the other day. So there are tests you can do. They're just not inexpensive. So,
But
if you have the problem and you want to know the best things to do for it, that is a great way of going.
right,
Yeah.
right, okay. 8960713 or 800-349-0713. We have a viewer with a call and a question in just a moment. We'll come back to that when we take this break and come back. 17 minutes after 9 o'clock here on this cold Monday morning. We'll be back with another question and this week's special. And welcome back. It's our final segment, 8960713 or 800-349-0713. Our phone lines are open to you. Viewer with a question, should I remove gallbladder because of tiny stones, or are there any other alternatives?
Well, if they're tiny, if you've only got a few of the small stones, it's probably not. But you're going to really have to change what you do and how you live. Because the reason they have the gallbladder problems to begin with is because you're not eating enough fatty foods to keep that thing purged. Gallbladder is nothing but a holding tank for bile salts. And if you don't eat fats where you need bile salts, it tends to kind of just sit there and it messes up, it kind of gets to sludgy, starts making stones. So there's things you can do for it. Everybody's an individual in that respect. Can't just say, oh yeah, here, do this, blanket, it's going to do it.
Because even if you have tiny stones,
Yeah.
and if it's getting infected, the gallbladder, and it's
Right.
getting gangrene, you got to have it taken out. But if
Yeah.
not, tiny stones are probably pretty common if people had the imaging done.
Right.
So everybody's a separate case. And if you want to come by and talk to us, you can. But we do suggest, we have something called Stone Breaker, which breaks up stones. We have something called lecithin, and we always suggest our Alzheimer when there's a gallbladder problem. It takes some of the stress off the gallbladder.
Right.
And when he talks about eating fat, you make sure it's good fat.
Yes.
Not all
Oh,
fat
yeah.
is equal.
No.
You want good
Avocados
fat.
are good fat.
Olive oil and avocado and
Yeah.
stuff like that. You want good fats. So.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do this week's special before we get to our next question. And it is?
It is GI Essentials. And we have not actually talked about our supplements very much this show, but we're going to talk about it the last segment, because GI Essentials is something that we have seen work so good in actually helping with the Crohn's, colitis, ulcerative colitis, anything that's inflammatory in the intestines, or even just your IBS with chronic diarrhea. It actually has a combination of a lot of different things. It has your glutamine, your aloe, it has slippery elm, marshmallow root, it has the deglycerized licorice, it has zinc carnosine, which is known to actually help with like H. pylori, other things that can affect the digestive tract.
Right.
We see such good results with this product. And it's a powder. You mix it with a little water and you drink it. And everything in it we have separately, and that's what we used to do, is we used to do everything separately.
Yeah.
And that was a lot harder to do when you have so many different products, and that's what we used to do 20 years ago.
Yep.
And before we had the GI Essentials.
Yeah, we put it together because it got kind of cumbersome to try to take.
Exactly.
Here you got to have like 10 things, okay,
And
to do this.
in the GI Essentials, you do one scoop, but one scoop, if you took it in pill form, because that's what everybody says, why don't we have it in pill form? It would take 20 pills, because it is a bunch of different things all in one supplement. And it tastes good. It's got a berry flavor, so
Right.
it is actually really good.
And you take it on an empty stomach, so because you want it to heal that gut. You want it to come in contact with the gut, the lining of the gut, so it can actually calm down that inflammation and make more mucus in the gut, which mucus is a good thing in the gut. And it's really good for healing the gut for any of those conditions, even whether it's Crohn's, whether it's colitis, gastritis, any of those.
Exactly. I mean, I have recently had a young guy that, just all of a sudden acute, severe diarrhea. It was all kind of problems he was having. And he did have that high calprotectin. It was extremely high. Nothing was helping him. It had been a few weeks. He started that GI Essentials and it stopped. And so he couldn't believe the difference in how much it made. And he was a younger guy, but some of the colitises are in younger people.
Right.
Yeah, especially the Crohn's.
Wow. All right, 23 minutes after 9 o'clock, another question from a viewer. Is Crohn's disease hereditary?
Well, it
you
can be, but
predisposition to have it genetically.
Yeah.
In other words, it doesn't mean you're going to have it.
I just read where less than 20% of the people with Crohn's have someone in their family that has it.
Right.
So yes, it can be hereditary, but more people it is not.
All right. How about, is coffee bad for Crohn's disease?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Coffee is very acidic,
I was going to say,
Yeah.
you can get some non-acidic coffees,
but still.
and they're better,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's not
Coffee
gonna
is
be
known
good.
to actually trigger diarrhea. It's a gut
Yeah.
stimulant, and people with that problem already, it's probably a good idea to get off of coffee. But if you're gonna do it, get the less acidic ones, because there are some that are less acidic.
Yeah.
We just got some that's called biodynamic coffee, which is supposed to be done different. But anyway, and it is very much less acidic. So there are alternatives out there.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah.
So GI Essentials, that's what you recommend for the supplement?
Well, that's not the only supplement. I mean, we have. Like
This
I
is
said,
to heal the gut.
Yeah, that's to heal the gut.
Okay. Right.
We have something called SPM, Special Pro-Resolving Mediators, and it resolves inflammation, doesn't just suppress it.
Right.
So the good thing, it is a resolvent, and it is really good for inflammation in the gut. And when you start looking at, also vitamin D has been shown to be beneficial. Like I said, calcium's been shown to be beneficial. Turmeric, if you can tolerate turmeric. Some people, the curcumins or turmeric, can actually increase diarrhea. But for the people that don't, it's a great anti-inflammatory. Ginger has been shown to actually help with the inflammation in colitis. So there are a lot of herbals, boswellia. There's a lot of research out there.
Yeah. A lot of anti-inflammatory.
So there's a lot of stuff you can do, and a lot of people that have these problems can't take your regular NSAIDs because the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs tend to aggravate Crohn's and colitis. And so that's why people a lot of times need something that helps pain and inflammation. And we do have a lot of different things that can help that.
Right.
And probiotics. You know, you see things back and forth on probiotics on colitis and Crohn's. And it depends on, I think, for most people it's beneficial. Every once in a while you hit one of them that it aggravates. So you just have to, person to person.
That's where you have to go back to that stool test to see what kind of diversity they have.
Exactly. The stool
And if they
test will
don't
tell
have,
you.
right, because that test will tell you you have a whole bunch of this and not enough of this. And so you know, oh, okay, I've got to get
Right.
specific probiotics to fix things. And that's why it's a great test for that.
And this is probably the time of the year that more people are going to have flare-ups from Crohn's and colitis because of
What they're
diet.
eating?
What
Yeah.
they're eating.
What they're eating
Exactly.
and stress. Stress flares up both.
Yeah.
So
Stress flares up everything.
It is.
It does. It really
well,
does.
high cortisol.
Heart
is-
disease.
Yeah, everything.
High cortisol, which is a stress hormone, which is also checked, definitely irritates the whole digestive tract.
Right.
So it's very much an irritant. So when you get high stress hormone, then it starts affecting everything.
Yeah.
So definitely controlling the stress and not eating all the junk around this time of the year could definitely help with both.
Now be careful what you eat. I mean,
That's it. That's
It
true.
is.
It's easy to sit around the, well, of course, Thanksgiving's past, but the Christmas dinner table and just say, I want some of this and this and this and this, and
Right.
you know.
A lot
Yep.
of people say, oh, I overdid it and I'm suffering. That's what
Yep.
we hear every year.
We hear that one a lot.
We
Okay.
hear that a lot.
That's when you eat enough just to get satisfied, and then you get takeout,
Yep.
Yeah. There you go.
or you get a
go.
box to
To-go
box to
box,
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Get a box to go. Next week,
Next week, we are
how to boost your energy
Yep.
efficiently and naturally.
Right. We're going to talk about just everybody's asking, what can I do for energy? And I don't like the stimulants. So we're going to talk about other ways you can boost your energy naturally.
Right.
Okay, all right. You can find a lot of more information, of course, on doctorsnutrition.com. Also, go and subscribe to their YouTube channel and to their Facebook page. We'll see you next Monday morning.
For more information on highlighting your business and services on Healthy Living South Mississippi, contact Jim Tabor at 896-1313.